Hi, everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors and director of the Real Estate Academy of America. Today's contract tip has to do with a little further explanation into the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, no financing contingency exhibit. So let me show you the exhibit and let's go over a couple of things to bring to your attention. So again, this is the Georgia Association of Realtors no financing contingency exhibit, and this is GAR form F401. It used to be called the cash exhibit, and in 2023, the Georgia Association of Realtors changed the name to the no financing contingency exhibit. So a couple of things I want to point out. There is a brand new paragraph that says method of purchase. Either it's an all cash purchase or the buyer is getting finance, but that buyer is choosing to not make the purchase and sale, the purchase of the new home, contingent upon the financing. In other words, your buyer is willing to risk earnest money should they not be able to convince a lender to lend them the money, or your buyer is getting a hard money loan. So let's look at these first. If it is an all cash purchase, the buyer, and you see this or here. So you're going to select either it's an all cash purchase or they're getting financed, but they're not making the transaction contingent upon getting approved for the financing. So if it is an all cash purchase, then the buyer is asserting that they have sufficient liquid assets to purchase the property. And here's the big thing: the buyer has no right to unilaterally extend the contract for 8 days unless it is an issue where the closing attorney is not ready, as long as the closing attorney delay is not related to a mortgage lender delay. If the buyer is getting financed, but they're willing to risk their earnest money, if they can't convince a lender to give them the money, they will not be able to go through with the deal, but they're willing to give up the earnest money to the seller. That's what this section is. For a buyer getting regular institutional financing or for a buyer getting a hard money loan. And again, there is no right to unilaterally extend the closing based on 8 days if it has anything to do with the loan or TRID disclosures or anything like that. As the only reason they would have an 8-day right to extend it unilaterally is if the closing attorney is not ready, and the reason the closing attorney is not ready is not related to a mortgage lender delay. Now, this next paragraph, paragraph 2, states that within so many days from binding agreement date, the buyer is obligated to provide or cause to be provided to the seller basically proof of funds, verification of funds, information describing in specific detail the source of the buyer's funds necessary to purchase the property. And here are some examples. It can be a letter from a trust account, a stock brokerage firm, a financial institution, so forth and so on. The assets must be stated what the funds are in US dollars, or an account statement from trust, so forth and so on. Now look here at this paragraph. Paragraph 2C under verification of funds. If option 1B is selected above, so if the buyer is getting financed, if they're going to a lender, they're just not making the deal contingent upon getting the loan, then you must provide a loan commitment letter from the mortgage lender within the same time frame, within so many days from binding agreement date. And then it goes on with authorization and security that the parties have the right to communicate with whomever is providing the source of funds, so forth and so on. Seller's right to terminate should the buyer not provide either documentation of source of funds if it's cash, or a loan commitment letter from a mortgage lender if it's financed within, and there are the time frames spelled out for that. But the other thing I want to point out to you on this no financing contingency exhibit, even if a buyer is paying all cash for a property and there is no lender involved, you buyer and seller still negotiate if there is an appraisal contingency. So it says, in addition to the other rights of the buyer set forth herein, this agreement shall or shall not be subject to the property appraising for at least the purchase price. And then it goes on to say type of appraiser and selection of the appraiser. Don't be tricked. Even if a buyer selects that it's an all cash transaction, don't think that that automatically means there's no appraisal contingency. Buyer and seller, don't miss this paragraph here. Buyer and seller still need to negotiate through an appraisal contingency. And then if it doesn't appraise for sale price, you need to fill in this time frame. If it does not appraise for sale price, then the buyer has the right so many days from binding agreement date to send the seller an amendment asking the seller to sell it for less than the contract price. Now, you sellers, whether it be a no financing contingency or a loan contingency, you are never obligated to lower the price from the contract sale price. You might have incentive to do so, and you might negotiate through that, but you're never contractually obligated to lower your price to an appraised value unless you agreed upon that in a special stipulation in the purchase and sale agreement. And if it is subject to an appraisal contingency and the property does not appraise for the sale price, the buyer is not obligated to ask the seller to come down in price. If you make it contingent, subject to appraising for sale price, and it doesn't, the buyer may go ahead and terminate the contract. So, and again, this is an exhibit that would go with your purchase and sale agreement. It does require buyer's initials and seller's initials. And again, there's that information. And this is the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, Form F401. They have a little typo here. It does say all cash sale exhibit, but they have actually changed the name, and it is now called the no financing contingency exhibit. So I hope this contract tip went into a little bit more in depth regarding that exhibit, and just some things to bring to your attention to not overlook if you are using this exhibit in your negotiations, whether you're on the buyer side or on the seller side. Thank you so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors and director of the Real Estate Academy of America, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.